look at his team, you recognize culture right away. They play really well on special teams. They play for each other. They got some young guys that are out there performing really well, and they have some guys that stand out on film as well. Good scheme and a nice challenge for us, but certainly excited to be back in front of our fans this Friday, and it'll be a little bit different Friday Night Lights, making it a fun environment for us.
Zach, all right.
Talk about get real meetings in the offseason, trying to get your players closer to each other so they can perform for each other, fight for each other in those moments. I'm guessing that's kind of what you saw on Saturday.
Yeah, I thought our guys had great composure, and it was kind of, each guy had to do their part. It was one of those games where every phase mattered. They all contributed, and guys that were on the field, guys that weren't on the field were a big part of the final result there.
Second row like that, or Eric, I'm sorry.
Coach, I want to ask you about the run game, kind of a broader question, because you've almost reached your total last year through 9 games already this year. What's working? What's allowed that success to happen? Is it a commitment? Is it, I'm sure it's a multitude of things, but what have you seen?
Yeah, I think it's that. It's a multitude of things. Every year is different and unique. You try to play to your team's strengths and what they do well. We've also had some games that the environment dictated that we're going to run the ball a little bit more. But really proud of our offensive staff and their creativity in the run game and what they've done. To find ways to be able to run the ball, utilize our personnel. When it matters and control games. They've done a really good job there. And then kudos to our players for being able to execute a lot of schemes at a high level.
On the left, Matt.
What's the process like when a guy can't go and you find out right before the game starts, or the weather gets really bad, or a guy gets hurt early in the game? What's that process like to maybe morph your game plan, and how do you feel like your staff has kind of handled that the last couple of weeks as it's been a thing?
Yeah, I think you always prepare with every scenario in mind, right? And you're always, we do a game day meeting every week that we go through. Okay, if this guy's down, who's next up? What's that take off the call sheet? What's that add? How many things can we work at in multiple personnel groups? Depending on, hey, this might normally be a 12 personnel play, but now it's going to be an 11 play. Can different guys do that? So we try to go through a lot of those scenarios in advance and play a lot of that out. And then sometimes it happens within the game. Sometimes it happens before the game.
James.
Wanted to get an update on each of those guys.
Yeah, and I'm not going to hop into update, but if they're ready, they'll play.
Right on the left, John.
Just wondering what you made of Janoris' performance and how he handled, stepping into that situation at right guard or right tackle.
Yeah, I thought he did some things really, really well. There's certainly some moments to have back. He jumped off sides there early in the game, but overall, I thought he played a complete game. To be able to keep our quarterback clean in that game was good. We obviously didn't throw it as much, but I thought Janoris did a good job.
Zach.
Similar question with Mateo. It seemed like he did a really good job of setting the edge. After watching the film, how do you think he did?
Yeah, ultimately, I thought our run defense did a really good job. We gave up a couple explosives, and it wasn't from that. But Mateo, Tatum, our front, I thought they did a good job up front of controlling guys, doing more with less at times. But ultimately, I thought he played a good game.
Back right, Jack.
You mentioned it earlier, just talking about Coach Fleck, what he's brought to that program, the consistency, especially in the postseason as well. What have you seen from him? What are your first impressions on Coach Fleck and what he's done with that program, especially looking at this year?
Well, I got to get to know him a little bit more since our move to the Big Ten here, and just everything I thought I knew about PJ is not really what I knew. He's an unbelievable human, has a cause, believes in what he believes in. Like I said, you watch his team play and you can see it on film, the energy that they play with, how they do things. I think he's just a guy that does it the right way, and has been very consistent with his message and how he attacks. He challenges you in a lot of ways in all phases, prepares the right way. So just a lot of respect for him and his program.
You're all right.
You talked last week before the Iowa game about how much you were focusing on the return game, and then you talked after that game about how happy you were with what went well. What specifically went really well for James and then the Gunners, and then how much of it was specific to what Iowa was doing or what translates to this week?
Yeah, each week's different, but we felt like 21 for them obviously could be a game changer in the return game, and I think he ended up with negative return yardage and punt, and I think we had what we would call a TFL on kickoff. Whenever you're able to pin him inside the 25, so a kicking game in that area certainly won, and those guys stepped up.
Left, Eric.
Really big chance after the game to ask you about Brandon and the 2 fumbles he forced, and just speak to him. We've seen what he does in coverage. This is maybe something that popped a little different than we've seen in the past.
Yeah, I thought, first off, I think it was a really good call by Coach LaPoy, recognizing, again, personnel and what we want to be in those scenarios. It's something we had talked through, and then, being an aggressive run fitter there for Brandon, putting his hat on the helmet. and then guys chasing the ball, Bear chasing the ball and guys chasing the ball to be able to get it out. So we want to be a team that attacks the ball, especially in wet conditions. Those are opportunities that you can get it out, and we did that on Saturday.
Zach, all right.
That throw from Dante was probably one of the better ones we've seen in games from him. Just you've seen a lot more of him than we have. Just curious where it ranks for you.
It's pretty high. It was a good one. It was certainly a good one.
James.
We talked even heading into the season, Dan, about utilizing more 12 and 21 at times this year, and you certainly have and did quite a bit on Saturday. How much of that was part of the plan going in because you knew you'd be a little shorthanded, and how much of that became necessity once Gary went down?
Yeah, ultimately, all a combination of both. You try to figure out who you have early in the season, and also what you like, and we happen to like both. We've been really good. I think we probably have more 21 personnel sets than the other team in the conference this year. And that goes back to trying to utilize the personnel that we have. We feel really confident about our guys in 12 and really like our guys in 11 too. So, but yeah, certainly some of that played into, when you're down some people, you're going to, lean into some of those other groups.
Back to Finney, he's starting to generate some national discussion as maybe not just a freshman All-American candidate, but just a pure All-American. What are your thoughts on just his development, his growth, what's made him so successful since day one?
Well, one, I'd say any recognition coming his way is well deserved. The guy works extremely hard. I think I've said up here several times how he prepares and how he works. It's not a surprise, to see him go out there and have success, and how he works on his craft and the way he attacks in practice. Nobody gets more frustrated than a ball being caught in practice than Brandon does. So, I think he's just a really clear product of a guy that's worked really, really hard, has the talent and the ability. He has that. But when you put those things together, you get a really special player.
Back right, Jack.
With it being a short week, especially after a long travel, how does that change does that, increase just the urgency to get everything prepared? How does that change? Do you have to take some things out, spend less time on certain areas? What's the impact that it has?
Yeah, there's certainly a difference. Generally on Mondays we'd spend some time watching the previous game. We'd go through and do corrections. We really put the eye. We bet the game as soon as we landed. Graded it, put our notes down as coaches, but moved right on to Minnesota. And then you lose a practice, so we started the day as a Tuesday practice. It's a little bit adapted and a little bit adjusted just because of time and making sure that you're able to get your players back from a recovery standpoint. So it's a little bit different. Guys have to be able to do more mentally than just physically. And then you kind of catch back up right around now.
Eric on left.
On the offensive staff, have always been creative with different personnel packages. I wonder with being maybe shorthanded at receiver down numbers, is that potentially a possibility where you end up getting creative with just who you're playing where and moving guys around a little more?
Yeah, you got any ideas? All right, yeah, we'll continue to be creative. I'm sure we'll see some stuff out there that's different.
Here on the right, Jack.
Over his 2 years, what have you seen from Atticus that's made him the perfect kicker for this moment, and how does that influence your play calling in those situations?
Yeah, I mean, we have a belief in Atticus. Like I said, we try to create moments like that in practice. It's not the same as the game, but I'm just really happy for a guy that works really hard to be able to go execute in those moments. And in special teams, we always say it's one play focus. You don't get a second down to go make it right or a third down to go make it right. It's one play, and he took advantage of his one plays on Saturday and executed for us.
On the left, John.
None of Iowa's defensive tackles were coming in over 300 pounds. So when guys on the inside of your offensive line have 20 to 30 pound advantage on them, did you think you were going to be able to take advantage of that with those inside runs, especially because they were really moving people on some of those duo calls?
Yeah, we felt like we had to have a variety of runs because nobody has been able to run the ball like that, really on Iowa this year. So we thought it was going to take a couple different, type of runs, and really a lot of them were successful for us. But our guys inside did a really good job.
Talk a lot about trying to peak at the right time of the season and play your best football at the right time. Last year was your first, experience with the elongated season. I'm wondering what you learned from that. It's one thing to say you want to play your best football at the right time, but what actually goes into that?
Yeah, I think our process is a little bit different when it comes to handling bye weeks, handling recovery. I'm probably a little more conscientious of that now than I have been in the past. And then again, I think you always have to continue to analyze what are your strengths, what are you doing well at the time, and making sure you're leaning in on those. As you get later in the season as a coach, a lot of times you feel like, okay, we can carry a lot more volume because these guys have ran a lot of plays, and that's not always the reality too, right? What can you execute at a high level? What takes away the other team's strengths? So there's certainly a lot of adaptations that we've had since last year.
Here on the right.
Just talk about the conversation with some of the guys who weren't going to be able to go was that you're a coach on the sideline. What did that actually look like in the game?
Yeah, like, obviously DeCorian wasn't playing, but every time I turned around, he was asking what's the play call. He's cheering on his teammates. He's encouraging them to hold on to the ball. I'm seeing the same thing from, Alex Harkey throughout the game. So just seeing those guys involved, they're there, and they could be spectators, but they didn't make that choice. They made the choice to be out there and coaching the guys on the field, which is awesome.
James.
Minnesota's obviously really disruptive from their front seven. What has made them that way collectively, and specifically about Smith, just what makes him that effective?
Yeah, they do a great job of getting after the quarterback, right? And they pin their ears back, especially when they have opportunities and do a good job of recognizing. They do a good variety of things on defense, right? There's a lot of change-ups, but when they get to advantageous situations to rush the passer, they take advantage of it. So when it's 3rd and long, they pin their ears back and they go. And they win up front. They create one-on-ones. They do some different things with their front. They play a variety of coverages, but those guys up front have really made it tick for the guys in the back end, and obviously they've created some negatives.
Yeah.
What did you take of Malik Benson's blocking and just the opportunity to stay ready for his moment? His snaps were down maybe before Rutgers PFF grades, so he had like a season high grading for blocking. It's like 16 points higher than anything else. But just his opportunity of being ready and being able to perform catching and blocking.
Probably the piece that I was most excited to see, and obviously Malik made some great plays throughout the game, with the catch at the end, but to go in there and field punts when that wasn't necessarily something you're intended to do in the rain, I thought was really impressive. But Malik's been an unbelievable teammate this entire year. He's been an explosive playmaker for us. He's done some things really, really well. I thought he blocked well. I thought he had a good game. I thought he did really well.
Zach.
Small sample size, we'd have seen Platt out there a little bit in some big moments. What did you see from him that you liked after watching the film?
Yeah, more than anything, I liked what he did in practice. He hadn't been available, and he came out really firing in practice this past week. He's going to be able to help us in special teams. He's going to continue to be able to grow and earn a role as a linebacker for us. But he's running the ball. He's playing like his hair's on fire. He looks fresh.
Kirk.
Thoughts on Minnesota's quarterback? He's a young quarterback, kind of the ups and downs, the ebbs and flows, kind of normal for a player. But the highs have been really high. What's been good when it's been good?
Yeah, it's impressive, to have a freshman playing at the level he's playing, and he can make a lot of the throws. I think he's a true passer, right? He's got the ability to make those throws. He gives his wideouts an opportunity to make a play down the field. Like, he's going to give him a chance. And ultimately, he's executed, pretty well in that. They passed the ball successfully, and a lot of that starts with him. He's a guy that can go through progression. He's able to do, things that you would ask a quarterback you don't necessarily see from a freshman very often. He's able to do that.
James.
For about 16 months now, you've broken opened each team meeting with 4 and 5. You didn't know the news on the weekend about the conclusion of Kyrie's situation. I guess that would be either some of the older guys who did get to play with him, or I believe Brandon specifically has a relationship there. But anyway, that's anything you got a chance to discuss with some guys.
I haven't, no.
Back right, Jack.
Coach, I'm sure I've asked you this before earlier in the season, but Dante Moore during the 2-minute drills, that seems to be when he's, his poise and confidence level is shown the most from a coaching standpoint. What do you see out of him that has that ability to have so much success in those 2-minute drills?
Yeah, cool under pressure. I didn't realize this, but this was Dante's first opportunity to actually come back from being down in a 2-minute drive. And he said that to me in his career, right? Not just in this game, but in his career, which I think is pretty awesome for him to have that moment. But he's cool, calm, and collected, executed at a high level.
So we have for you, Coach. Thank you.
Thank you.